With me on the Politicrat Daily podcast today are two excellent filmmakers, documentarians who have won the Academy Award for their great documentary, which is called Undefeated. I urge everybody to watch that. It's available right now on Netflix. They've done a variety of other films together, documentaries, including the tremendously effective LA 92 about the aftermath of the infamous verdict in the case of four white police officers in Los Angeles who beat Rodney King so brutally. That's a really powerful documentary. I urge you to watch. And and this coming weekend on HBO and HBO Max, they have put together a masterclass of filmmaking with one name and one name only. And you know, if you mention the name Tina, I think most of those listening and watching will know exactly to whom I am referring. And that is the one, the only Tina Turner. I think one of the 10 greatest entertainers who's ever lived.
Hmm.
That said, I leave no further introductions except to say, welcome to Dan Lindsay and TJ Martin. Gentlemen, thank you for being here on the Politicrat Daily Podcast. Congratulations on this film. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Quite an introduction.
What your audience can't see is me blushing when you say masterclass. I'm getting sweaty over here. You make me nervous. I don't know how to follow that up.
Well, let me say to you both, your filmmaking and your true, and honestly, your excellence precedes you. The work that you've done, and I've watched those three films that I just mentioned to the listening and viewing audience, and I urge them to. Your reputations and the great craft that you have you put together, the body of work precedes you. So congratulations to you both on that. It's a well-deserved introduction. It's a sincere introduction. And so thank you for the next few minutes. I have to start with this. On a very selfish note, gentlemen, before I sat down and watched Tina, and everybody must watch this documentary, I said to myself, before the beginning credits, before the start, I said, they have got to say something about Mick Jagger. And I kid you not, they've got to, because if they don't, I don't know, as a film critic, this is so selfish of me to say, but I've got to say this to you both. They've got to mention Mick Jagger because this guy got his moves from Tina Turner. Let's be honest. And the one of the first things you do is, there it is, Mick Jagger. Tina Turner, the woman who taught Mick Jagger how to dance, off of that 1981 interview with People, that headline. I was like, whoa, this is great. And so right there, I was already hooked. And it's very selfish to say that, but I wanted to share that with you. I'm so glad you did that. And you did it one of the earliest things. Can you talk about that? The part about the putting Mick Jagger and where he got his dance moves from.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, number one, I really appreciate that you admit that, and that even coming into it, it's like, I need these things in here, right? And I think that is something that as filmmakers is always on our mind, especially with something like Tina Turner, right? Where arguably this should be like a 10-hour mini series to really do justice to her life, her artistry, her music. And so those were things that were very much on our mind. But we knew in taking the direction we wanted to take with the film that we were most likely never going to go into like real didactic sections of like, okay, let's break down how her vocal technique is like this, or this is how she dances on stage. But we definitely wanted to make sure that we at least kind of that either through the subtext, by just allowing performances to play out, so you can just as an audience be like, we don't need somebody to say she's an amazing performer, you can just see it because it's so evident. And then to be able to kind of work those other things in there, like you're saying, via the story we were telling. So for us, the story we're telling really does start with the first time that Tina Turner was public about her life with Ike Turner, and that was in a 1981 interview in People magazine. the added benefit is that article, by having Carl Arrington, who wrote the article, read some of that stuff, it allowed us to get some exposition out about the power of Tina as a performer. And as you said, the fact that she is the one who influenced Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, which, when you see the film, you'll see is also kind of subtly comes back later when, ironically enough, Tina says, I want to be like Mick Jagger, when it's like, wait, you were Mick Jagger.
Absolutely. And that really did ring a bell when that moment comes later on in this fine work that you've both done. I do want to ask you both as well, by the way, even before getting into a few other questions, is how did you have this opportunity land at your doorstep? You're both excellent filmmakers. That's clear. And the work shows that, and your craft shows it. I dare say, to be crude, if you don't mind, winning an Academy Award certainly probably did not hurt you. But I asked this question out of great respect for you both, because Tina Turner, as you point out in this excellent piece of work that you've both directed, was very wary of wanting to watch, obviously, What's Love Got to Do with It, the 1993 feature film with Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne. She didn't watch it. She said she didn't watch it. And the book that she wrote with Kurt Loder, I, Tina, was one she thought that would put to rest a lot of the media and what these accounts were with Ike, who I really don't want to talk too much about, because I'm sure you've had a lot of questions about that, as has she. How did you get Tina Turner's trust as well, in addition to this opportunity? Because this is an enormous opportunity, and you took the ball and ran with it and gave her such a brilliant and respectful portrayal and a full accounting of those parts of her life. So can you talk a bit about the trust and about how this opportunity came to you both?
Well, first off, I really appreciate your words and your perspective on that. The film came about. It actually started with Simon Chin and Jonathan Chin, who also produced our last film, LA92. They had been working with Tina the musical and doing some ancillary videos to help support the musical. And through that, they were able to meet Irwin and Tina and develop a relationship with them. And they kind of sold through this idea of how has there not been a authorized Tina Turner documentary. And Tina and her husband Irwin, after some time and some thought, agreed to made an agreement with them that they would participate in the film. Then they came to us to see if we were willing to direct it. So they were already on board. And honestly, we were skeptical, and we were a little bit hesitant at first for a variety of reasons. One is, we weren't sure if two men should be kind of voicing and helming and authorizing a film about Tina Turner. And another one was we've been asked to do kind of celebrity driven films before, and we always feel that they're a little bit more, there's not really a story at the center of it. It's a little bit more leveraging the story, and it ends up kind of being more like a profile. And so after doing a little bit of due diligence and a little bit of research, and specifically reading I, Tina, the book she co-wrote with Kurt, we realized that she lived an extraordinary life, because we just knew the broad strokes. We didn't know the details of it. And it gave us the insight that maybe we can actually make a proper film. So it's a film first. It just happens to have at the center of it one of the most iconic performers of all time. And so then we said yes and decided to commit to the film. But we still had this question of, like, to your point, like, there's been all these other iterations of the telling of her film, the book, the movie. She also released, a couple years back, another book, My Love Story. There's now the musical, which gave us a tremendous amount of anxiety, thinking, oh no, what have we done? What are we going to add? How are we going to add value to this story? And it wasn't until meeting with her in those first early conversations where we had been primed for some of the sensitivities around talking about Ike, but it came up naturally in conversation. She kind of brought it up. And what was really evident was that the pain of her past was still very present. It was always kind of lurking around the corner. And that was just that was kind of a revelation for us, that even at 80 years old, she was still processing this trauma. And that's actually that insight is the thing that gave us the POV of the film. And that's the thing that we felt was kind of missing in all these other tellings of her story is what is Tina's perspective on the narrative, on the story, on the myth of Tina Turner. So the film actually has two main characters, the story of Tina and the story of Tina, and watching her wrestle with that. So to answer your question, the process of gaining her trust was really just about being upfront with our perspective from the beginning, and just being very transparent about what it was that we thought was had been missing from her narrative. And really, all the way we were positioning ourselves is can we be a conduit for Tina's voice? This film doesn't work, at least the angle we chose, it doesn't work without the participation of Tina. And over time, I think we just we grew trust and grew rapport with her that kind of allowed us to dive into to some of the darker moments in her life.
Most certainly, and you did such a magnificent job of covering those shades over what amounts to around 5 chapters that you put this film into, 5 or 6 chapters that you put the film into, so that people really get these slices of her life and this journey, this really long journey in the search of love too, that she goes through amidst all these other things. I do want to stress that, because that's a very important thing, without giving anything away. That's another ingredient that that is part of this work that's critical. But the thing that I really must ask you is about your process. One of the things that that I've observed in watching your work, and other people who are listening and watching, I think will have noticed this too, is how you use artifacts to record, to be the witness of telling your stories. When you as documentarians do this so well, the cassette tape we see, the cassette recorder we see, the film stock we see, the Kodak film slides of photographs, how you so brilliantly curate that into part of the narrative that gives us this texture of Tina, this texture that we see, and how video is used and how cameras are used. You did this in LA 92 as well, how you allowed footage to show the story and tell it, and the editing that's involved, and looking at the camera and deconstructing that in LA 92, for example. Forgive my diversion for those of you listening, and for the two filmmakers. You have this moment in LA 92 where President George H.W. Bush is giving a speech, and then the reveal from that, and when the camera is supposedly off, and how we see the makeup and the deconstruction. And you do it again in Tina, where we see those moments. You've got to tell me, and tell everybody who's listening and watching, that part, that process. I love that about what you both do.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's really appreciated. It's funny because we don't spend a ton of time like analyzing or breaking it down. There is some of that is instinctual for us, but there's a ton of thought and intention obviously behind that as well. And I think, one thing is we are so interested as filmmakers to make things that are experiential, right? And I think in a scripted film, you have full control over that, and you can create all of the things you need. And we happen to kind of find ourselves in the documentary form, which we love and are excited by, but we still think of ourselves, I think I can say this, as filmmakers, right? And we're approaching these, we just happen to be working in nonfiction. And so part of the the thing for us is like, how do we make this feel alive? So it's not like we're not finding archive to just be the example of something that somebody is talking about. How do we make the archive feel alive, but then also hopefully put it in a new context, or to your point of LA 92, show that to remind the audience that this is an artifact and this is also a performance, and like, you know, and so where is the, and to kind of layer these things in a way that it brings new meaning to something that could just be a Polaroid picture. How do you make that feel like it has depth in a way that isn't just representative of something? I mean, that's a kind of like, I don't know, not fully esoteric way to describe it, but I mean, it's like, but yeah, I don't know. TJ is also the, like, you know, the master artist editor that makes us look so good in that regard. So maybe he should say something.
No, honestly, to your point, Dan, it's so much of it is instinct. It really does boil down to kind of bigger picture intention, and a lot of it ends up leaning on, if we can set the stage for the POV of the film, and like the thing that's really like get the audience for the subtext to have just as much weight as the journey that you're going on. So so the audience is actually interacting with the film, whether they're conscious of it or not. It's kind of happening. You're actually having a conversation with the film. Then all of a sudden, it actually, you know, editorially and stylistically, it makes our job a little easier. If we get all that heavy lifting done, then, to kind of what Dan's saying, like, then you're looking at an image with a new point of view. It's not like the cutting is differently. It's not like there's some real, like, you know, crazy editorial style that's happening. We've just done some weird excavating in your head so that you're doing the work of looking at that image in a different light. And that's just something that's really important to us, is that hopefully the work that we're doing, it's of equal importance to create something that's cinematic and go on this journey so it feels like a proper movie, but there's the subtext is of equal importance. What is it saying? Was it exploring? We want you to be an active participant in our work. And that's probably where, you know, a lot of the heavy, like the real heavy lifting is to figure out a way to marry those two worlds.
I really appreciate how you're both talking about this too, and I hope that the audience listening and watching does. I'm sure they do. One of the last things I want to ask you in the couple of minutes or so we've got left here is to talk about Tina Turner, what you discovered along the journey of making this film over the year or two, or maybe longer, that you may have put it together, that surprised you, things that, you know, you completely did not know, things that challenged you and maybe shaped the way you made the film, or maybe forced you to change course somehow during the course of this journey. What things about Tina Turner surprised you, challenged you, gave you this extra admiration for her? Can you talk a little bit about that in the last couple of minutes that we have here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say something. I mean, there's so much, and I'm sure TJ has things too, but one that popped into mind with the way you're asking the question is, you know, for us, it was I think we entered the project and thinking, I think like a lot of people do, that Tina came forward with the truth of her years with Ike as a means to be like, I want to shine a light on something. And I think one of the big discoveries for us was finding this 1981 People magazine article, which, you know, when we found that, because we assumed that she revealed this stuff once she became famous and through the book I, Tina, but really it was in this article, and the date is something that really stood out to us, because we knew in 1981 Tina Turner wasn't like on MTV and filming like stadiums or anything like that. She was playing in Vegas and she was doing the cabaret circuit at hotels, and so it was like, why would there be a profile of her in People magazine? And that was when we, you know, in talking with her and the writer and her manager at the time, Roger Davies, we learned that the reason that Tina did that was she was having trouble getting a record deal in the United States because people associated her with Ike, and Ike did not have a great reputation in the record industry. And no one really understood the truth of their relationship. And so Tina decided, as a means to actually separate herself from Ike in that part of her career, that she would speak the truth of what their relationship actually was. And then the discovery, or the not discovery, but the irony, of course, being that in that decision, Tina, in some ways, tied Ike to her identity for the rest of her life in a way that she was never able to escape. And I think that was a real discovery for us and revelation. And again, why we wanted to kind of shape the film in the way we did, to really look at the reverberations that decision had throughout the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Go ahead, TJ.
I was just going to say that I mean, because we didn't know the details of her story, there's a ton of kind of crazy anecdotes and new discoveries for us. I still think that the biggest one is the thing we discovered in those first conversations, recognizing that we too fell victim to this notion that of the symbol of Tina, right? This symbol of strength and resilience means that she's overcome her past, and in discovering at 80 years old that it's quite the opposite, that she's making a decision to survive every day, that she's still as vulnerable now and still processing her pain and trauma was such a revelation for us it informed the POV of the film. Now, having said that, we spend a lot of time where the film, and I appreciate what you said earlier. The film seems like it's on surface level. It's navigating trauma and processing trauma, but to your point earlier, it's a pursuit of love, and as much as the film kind of leans in on that space, and it's not a film about her artistry. The other thing that really was quite a discovery for, I think, the two of us, because we weren't necessarily massive Tina fans, is to be reminded of how incredible of a performer and vocalist she is. She's one of a kind, and I think our additional hope is that we take these opportunities to really let a performance just kind of play out. Additional hope is that people will start to remind themselves and appreciate how unique and incredible she is as a performer.
Well, I do thank you both and congratulate you both on this excellent achievement. Sincerely, congratulations to you both. TJ Martin, who you just heard from, and before he, Dan, Lindsay, both Academy Award-winning filmmakers of the film Undefeated, really good film that's on Netflix. But Tina, just one name, Tina, just once. Tina is coming up this Sunday, March the 27th, 2021 on Netflix, premiering not on Netflix, on HBO and HBO Max. Coming up this Sunday, March the 27th, premiering then. Please, everybody, go out and please watch this fantastic thing, this fantastic, wonderful piece of work. Congratulations, gentlemen, and thank you again for being here on the Politicrat Daily Podcast today, and all the best to you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.